Hello and welcome back to the Second Chance Live channel. I'm happy to see that you decided to stop by to watch this video presentation. To read today's video presentation, I'll put on my glasses and bring up the article. I want to thank you for your time. Here's the article. Brain Injury, Facing Denial and Creating Hope to Have a Good Life, Part 1. In May 2007, I wrote and published the article, Traumatic Brain Injury and Denial, My Perspective as a TBI Survivor. In today's article, Brain Injury, Facing Denial and Creating Hope to Have a Good Life, I share a revision and an update to that article, The Beginning of Awareness. I met with a group of friends tonight in May of 2007 after a support meeting, and during that time together, I felt led to share some of my struggles as an individual living with the impact of a traumatic brain injury with a friend of mine's girlfriend. My friend went through a series of interferon treatments several years ago, that was prior to 2007, to treat a malignant, stage 4 melanoma. The interferon treatment saved his life, but in the process caused some brain damage. The damage to his brain has limited his ability to function at the level prior to the cancer treatments. I shared my experience, strength, and hope with my friend's girlfriend because she was debating whether she was going to continue dating him or not. I shared with her because of what I thought was important, that she loved him despite how the interferon treatments affected his brain. What I shared from my experience living with the impact of a traumatic brain injury with my friend's girlfriend. As I have shared in my post, my journey thus far, please read for further details, and I provide a link to that here in this article. My brain injury occurred in 1967 when I was 10 years old. I was in a coma for 3 weeks and in traction to set my left femur, which was also fractured at the time of the accident. After being placed in a spica or full-body cast for my left femur, after completing traction, I was transferred to another hospital where I underwent brain and skull surgery. Months after the surgery and after being taken out of the full body or spica cast that I remained in for 5 months until my femur healed, and after learning how to walk, my parents took me to meet with a neuropsychologist. At the appointment, I underwent a battery of cognitive, psychological, and social tests. Results from the first 2 EEGs and neuropsychological evaluation done in 1968 at the age of 10. Per my experience with EEGs, one of the EEGs was done with little spikes that were pushed into my skull. The second EEG was done with electrodes that were pasted onto my skull. Results from those tests were shared with my parents, however, they decided to keep the findings from me. I did not find out about those results of the test done in 1968 until the day of graduation from the master's program in rehabilitation counseling. My mom shared with me that the neuropsychologist told her and my dad concerning the results of the EEGs and the battery of neuropsychological testing in 1968. The results showed that I was not expected to succeed beyond high school academically. I went on to obtain my undergraduate degree in 10 years and 4 different majors, and my graduate degree in rehabilitation counseling in 3.5 years, 2 master's programs, and 2 graduate schools. After I received my master's degree in rehabilitation counseling and my credentials as a certified rehabilitation counselor, or CRC, another piece of the puzzle that chipped away at my denial approximately 2 years after I completed my graduate degree. The experience was not unlike many of my professional and non-professional jobs that I had throughout my 20 years 20 plus years in the workforce. While working as a master's level rehabilitation counselor in the Florida Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, I began having difficulty performing my job duties as well as interacting with other staff members. In my frustration, I decided to disclose to my supervisor that I experienced a traumatic brain injury when I was 10 years old, given that I was in fear of losing my job. Disclosing my traumatic brain injury to my vocational rehabilitation supervisor. In response, she in turn told the manager of the office, who in turn told the district supervisor, who in turn asked to have a meeting with me. The district supervisor determined that it was in my best interest to become a client of the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation while still working as a Department of Vocational Rehabilitation counselor. Over the next 3 months, I was transitioned out of my job as a rehabilitation counselor and into the role of a client or consumer of services after being terminated as a DVR counselor. As you might imagine, this period of time in my life provided confusion and depression, given my own rehabilitation counselor. After being given my own rehabilitation counselor, I was scheduled to undergo another EEG. My DVR counselor also arranged for me to undergo a battery of neuropsychological tests or a neuropsych evaluation. The results from the EEG confirmed that I had some brain damage. I then met with a neuropsychologist to complete the neuropsychological evaluation over the course of 2 Saturdays. 3 weeks after completing the evaluation, I met with the neuropsychologist and he went over the results of the testing. I also received a detailed report of his findings. The long and short of the findings showed that I was functioning at a level above my abilities. He stated that I had somehow been able to obtain both my undergraduate and graduate degrees despite the findings of his neuropsychological evaluation. He stated that I had somehow been able to obtain both my undergraduate and graduate degrees despite the findings of the neuropsychological evaluation. His findings and report did not make any sense to me. His findings and report left me frustrated and bewildered. How could I be able to obtain an undergraduate and a graduate degree and my credentials, national credentials as a certified rehabilitation counselor, but not be able to function at an undergraduate or graduate level in traditional work settings? The conclusions drawn by the neuropsychologist seem to be in direct contradiction with what I've been able to accomplish academically. He said that I had succeeded far beyond all reasonable expectations through sheer persistence and motivation. Results of my second EEG and neuropsychological evaluation in Florida shared with my family. When I shared the results of the test with my family, they all thought that the neuropsychologist did not know what he was talking about concerning my level of functioning. For the next 3 to 4 years, I continued to work under the assumption that the neuropsychologist's findings were rubbish. My parents and brother continued to concur with the assumption that the reason I had difficulty maintaining employment was because I did not try hard enough. Nevertheless, I continued to get and lose jobs. My relationship with my dad in denial. Even after I was declared unemployable and disabled, part of me continued to believe that my parents and my brother were right and the test results were bogus. My dad also without mercy, seemed to criticize my inability to stay employed, not accepting that I was living with an invisible disability, and who knew at that time? that I was living with an invisible disability that was getting in the way of my being able to maintain employment. So prior to facing my denial, my dad's inability to accept my reality crushed my ability to love and accept myself. My dad wanted to believe that if he pushed me hard enough that I would straighten up. My dad never fully accepted that I was wrong, that I was doing my best, and continued to blame me for what he could not or would not accept. What made matters worse for me was that I berated myself for my inability to maintain employment. As a result, I maintained a sense of shame and guilt for not being able to not be affected by the open skull fracture and the severe brain injury that I sustained in a motor vehicle accident in 1968. In the process, I maintained a low-grade chronic depression or dysthymia. For many years, I had no idea that although I looked normal, I was struggling in life because of my invisible disability. Recruited by an insurance company and moving to North Carolina. In 1996, I was recruited by an insurance company to work as a master's level rehabilitation counselor and certified rehabilitation counselor in the field of workers' compensation. 4 months after moving from Florida to Charlotte, North Carolina, and beginning the job, I was told my services were no longer needed and I was terminated. Bewildered, I reapplied for the third time with Social Security Administration to begin receiving Social Security disability. I also applied to begin receiving services through the North Carolina Department of Rehabilitation, Vocational Rehabilitation. After completing the evaluation process with the North Carolina Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, I was told by my counselor that I was unemployable. Shortly thereafter, I received no news from the Social Security Administration that my third application had been approved, and I began receiving SSDI benefits in 1999. Being deemed to be unemployable and declared disabled was both frustrating and relieving. Frustrating because I had diligently applied myself for many years, but was unable to maintain employment in a traditional work setting. Relieved because I had lived for so many years with financial insecurity. Although I felt like someone all dressed up with nowhere to go, I still wanted to use my gifts, talents, and abilities. And this is the end of part 1 of the video presentation. Before I go, let me encourage you with this. Please do not give up on yourself, a loving God, or your process, because more will be revealed to you as it is being revealed to me with time. The pieces of the puzzle will come together in the correct order and at the right time. I'll say so long for now. Have a great day, and God bless both you and your family. So long now.